So where is the level of concern with the Oregon Ducks? Because that game was going on as it was finishing. Well, we did a little like straw poll in the final minute. We all thought Boise State was going to win because they were doing a good job of being physical up front. But Oregon is able to get out of there with a 37-34 win. What do we think about the Ducks?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd put the concern level at 4.9 because there's part of me. I mean, I think Boise State is just a good team. And we were talking about earlier in the show, there's a very good chance Boise State could be the G5 rep in the college football playoff. So maybe at the end of the season, this game doesn't look nearly as hairy as like maybe last week's game against Idaho did. The concern for me is the lack of explosive plays from the Oregon offense. Like the offensive line is still not great. They did not look great against Boise. They didn't look great at Idaho, and that is a concern. But what the difference was this week, like I felt like from down to down, Oregon's offense was fine, but they were like hitting a bunch of singles. They were not connecting on like a 3-run homer. They were leaving a lot of runners on base. How many more baseball cliches can I fit into this one? But like they didn't have a run longer than 12 yards. They only had 3 pass completions over 15. And the other aspect of this that, I mean, I made the joke about it on Twitter, but like everything is to the left. Like the entire offense passing game is designed to go to the left side of the field because that's where Dylan Gabriel is most comfortable throwing the football. And defenses understand that. And while you still have to cover the entire field, if you've got a pretty good idea of which side of the field the ball's going to, you can kind of tailor your coverage to that side and keep things in front of you and then hope Dylan Gabriel and those guys can beat you in the red zone. And with the way their offensive line is playing right now, there's a decent chance they won't be able to beat you in the red zone. So there are concerns. I still think that it's one of those things where if the offensive line improves week over week, this will still be a pretty good team come the end of the year. But based on what I have seen from these teams in the Big Ten so far, like the Ohio State having to go to Eugene to me loomed as a big game on the schedule where I was giving Oregon the edge for all the obvious reasons. I am far more confident based on what I've seen from the Buckeyes that Ohio State can go into Eugene and beat the Ducks than I was a couple weeks ago.
I did rewatch this. Well, not rewatch. I just watched because I don't have Peacock, so I watched it for the first time. I have some concerns for the Ohio State game. I have no concerns for Oregon State, UCLA, or Michigan State because I just don't think think those teams are any good. So my assessment that they basically had a 6-week preseason is unchanged, but I have greater concerns based on what they have shown in this sort of preseason, level of thing. Like they are screwing around some in these games. I was not super high on Dylan Gabriel as a player. Again, I think if he actually was that good, he would have gone to the NFL. But he is supposed to be a really good college player. And I don't think that he is executing the offense very well right now. The completion percentage is high, but when I watched it, I did see open guys that he's not pulling the trigger on. So maybe there's a comfort level thing there. I don't think Oregon's having a problem scheming guys open quite as much. He just needs to pull the trigger. I think the offensive line will get better. And Boise has a pretty special running back in Ginty who hit some explosive runs. I think the question with Oregon becomes like they should be a dog right now to Ohio State, and probably are. I haven't looked at the look ahead market. Like, does Illinois become a game of concern at all? It's in Eugene, right? Probably not. Does the game at Michigan become a greater concern? Because that was always sort of the number 2 game on this schedule. I don't know. Like, can Michigan's offense get its act together? Like Maryland sandwiched between the Michigan game and the Wisconsin game. Like, does that become a game that you can actually lose? Probably not, but maybe they'll play you tough. What about the one at Wisconsin? Again, like not real high on Wisconsin this year. Like, is that concerning? Washington's certainly not concerning for me at this point. So I still think they have a pretty high floor, but this team wanted to go to the Final Four, I think.
Like high floor record-wise isn't the same as when we're judging you in a vacuum against the very best teams in the country.
Exactly right, Chip. And when we defined in the preseason what would define success for Oregon, I think we all said they need to make the Final Four.
That's why the panic meter for me is a little bit higher, probably 6.7, because of the expectations coming in. All this, remember why Oklahoma was willing to part ways with him and go to Jackson Arnold. They wanted bigger play capability. You know, I think they were frustrated for exactly what we're talking about, the lack of explosive plays within that offense. And I think it was that top tier arm strength. I thought he would plug in right where Bo Nix left off as far as the accuracy. I thought he would challenge his, 78% completion percentage. But I also thought he'd be able to give you the same explosive play rate, but he's not as good a runner. So, like, you're not going to get those types of runs and big plays from the QB. And Bo Nix probably has a better arm overall.
Definitely.
So I'm starting to get a little bit nervous for the top tier.
I'm not saying Gabriel's McCall, but he will get drafted much lower than his numbers suggest he should, because it's just like you see him in person. He's not big at all. The arm does not have a lot of pop. But I think he'll improve because he'll know where to go with the ball. Like, there's a comfort factor here he doesn't have yet.
Did you watch it this morning or last night?
This morning.
Okay, so do you remember in the fourth quarter, they're driving late and like he sailed a seam route? It was the most hilarious thing ever. With the Dylan Gabriel overthrow is just like a double rainbow. You're just like, oh, wow, but that's the accuracy in general. It just, nothing was crisp. And Dan Lanning said after the game, he's like, we got to be smarter. We got to be smarter. The procedural penalties, the fact that like some of that might come from the fact in the middle of this game, they switched up their offensive line. They moved a couple pieces in and out. And I did think that the run game had a little bit more success once they made those changes. Yep. Just comparing.
They had down success, but they were not getting anything like explosive in the run game. They haven't at any point this season yet. It's a concern.
To your point, there's open guys and he's either not pulling the trigger or he's missing some of the throws. I can see how very quickly this could all like click into place, but everything seems just a little bit off. It's like a zipper that's stuck and it just won't like all go together, because when they have the special teams plays or when they do like have these moments where you just remember, oh my gosh, the athleticism that is on this roster is next level. But when they can't set it up with any kind of consistency, it's tough to really judge them as one of the very best teams in the country.
Which could be, it's just taking time to get everybody up to speed. Dylan Gabriel's only been there 9 months. He's learning new players, learning new scheme, learning new concepts. That could be all it is. And then they have this preseason to get it right before October 10th. And then we'll really find out. Or even if they lose that game, they have even more time to figure it out before the playoffs start.
Yep. Tom, you said you got a lot from the Big Ten in your pun for the review. What's in the notebook?
Well, first I will just say that I watched the Ohio State game. I am here to declare that Ohio State is quite good.
No, yeah, Bud said that. I hadn't. You were like, yeah, we watched the first like 4 drives, and you're like, oh, okay, all right.
They are the every year there's the team like where they're not playing anybody, but they're just absolutely crisp and just absolutely destroying the teams that they are playing. That's Ohio State right now. They just look really good, which is a shock to everybody. I am sure nobody saw that coming from the Buckeyes. The other one was going back and looking at Penn State. I didn't watch the whole game, but just going through it. They were kind of the opposite of Oregon, in which that offense was still hitting explosive plays, but they weren't hitting any singles. So it was like a whole lot of solo home runs and stuff like that, which I think kind of helped keep Bowling Green. And the bigger concern, and we talked about this on Saturday, so there's not too much new here, but defensively, they looked a little ordinary against Bowling Green, or at least not as good as you would expect that defense to look.
KJ Wallace went out in the first half there. He was the defensive player of the week for the Big Ten against West Virginia. So like I don't think they have great depth in the secondary. They're going to have to stay healthy there. I don't know what his status is for this week. I will say on Ohio State, I ran through the first half on the just watching the snaps. I did not watch their defense. I watched that live. They killed Western. They did show a little bit of the quarterback run stuff. And in week 1, I didn't see any of that. So they didn't actually have Howard keep it much, but they did do some of like the play pass stuff off of it. And I think they're starting to show a little bit of that, which you knew it's there. Like Oregon's not a dummy. They know who you hired at OC. Like you don't want to show everything. I'm sure you want to make Oregon prep for some stuff and then have some counters off of it. But that offense does look different when you have to account for the QB run. And Howard is a pretty good runner at the college level.
What else?
Can I yell at